Hello and welcome to another episode, the second episode of Guide to the Grind Marketing. I'm your host, Jeff Eady. Thanks for watching. Always appreciate that. If you're watching me on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you're part of the email list, well, just keep staying on the email list. Of course, as always, you can download the book that I wrote, Major Marketing Mistakes and Other Dumb Stuff to Avoid, at guidetothegrind.com. Today I want to talk about something that's very near and dear to my heart. Targeted marketing. Who are you talking to? I had a conversation with the CEO of a marketing firm the other day, and it really surprised me. We were talking about how they generate leads and what they're using to reach out to those people. And when we started talking about targeted audiences, he said something that surprised me. He said, "Yeah, we're actually getting a much better result when we target our audience. It's cheaper for us to get people who to attract people who are actually targeted than it is to go out there and just use a shotgun style of marketing." And I thought for a company of their size, this was really surprising. I like a lot of what they do, don't get me wrong. It's just that they're missing a piece. Most of the things they do, I completely agree with. But I couldn't believe that the very beginning piece, the start, the most important part, was the piece that they are only starting now to discover. So what is targeted marketing? Well, targeted marketing is very simple. You know what? It's best to give you a story. When I was a kid, I grew up in a very small town, great place to grow up. And part of what we did, as soon as you could skate, you had a hockey stick in your hands. And as soon as you could row a boat, you were out duck hunting. And one day we were out duck hunting, and there's a lot of reasons why I don't duck hunt anymore. The biggest one is getting up at 4 in the morning to go sit in an ice cold blind in November. And I remember sitting in the blind. I was with my uncle and my dad, and there was like an inch and a half of ice on our decoys. It was so cold that morning. It's so boring because you're just sitting there staring at the water, which is nice. I appreciate it a lot more now. When I was 14, 15, it wasn't quite as tranquil. I wanted to go do stuff. But what happened was we were sitting there for a good 4 or 5 hours, and a flock of geese flew right over our blind. And when they did, we all got excited, and we all stood up, and we all shot. And we only got one shot off because all our guns were frozen. And what happened is we all missed every single goose. Because what we did was we got excited and we saw this group of geese. And instead of shooting at an individual one, we shot at the whole flock. Because we shot at the whole flock, we ended up missing everyone. And it's actually called flock shooting. It's something that is a term in hunters, especially new hunters. Flock shooting is very, very common. But what we should have been doing was actually looking at one goose, leading it a little bit, and aiming at that one. Marketing is exactly the same. That's why they call it a shotgun style of marketing, or flock shooting. Well, that's what I call it. When you're going out there trying to talk to everyone, the only result that occurs is you end up talking to no one. Nobody's listening. There's so much noise out there that if you're trying to attract every person, you have to yell louder than the guy next to you. Problem is, the guy next to you has a bigger voice or a bigger marketing budget. So what I love to do with small business owners is help them understand who their target audience is, but more importantly, why they should be targeting their audience. Here's an example, and I don't use this to impress you. I use this to impress upon you the importance of targeted marketing. In my one business, my private mortgage business, I have this exact same funnel that I teach people set up, the 4 Aces marketing system, and typically in real estate, it costs anywhere between $76 and $110 to convert somebody from first seeing your ad to actually subscribing to your email list. That's a very expensive customer acquisition, and it's not even a customer, it's just a subscriber. At $110 a piece, that's huge. Because my marketing is so targeted, you can hear my cats fighting in the background, because my marketing is so targeted, my customer acquisition or my subscriber acquisition is actually only around $10. That's crazy. That's $100 cheaper than the most expensive action. Now, again, I'm not using that to toot my own horn. It's for one simple reason. Because I took the time in the beginning to understand who my audience was, and I wrote specifically for them when I created the book. I can teach you to do exactly the same thing, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So there's really 2 ways to go about it. If you're an established business owner, you should have a list of your best customers. And it's always going to be the 80-20 rule. If you haven't heard of that, look it up. But the 80-20 rule applies to everything, including business, including customers. When you look at your 100% of your customers, the top 20% are going to be responsible for about 80% of your sales. Right there is your target audience. What you need to do, if you don't have a good CRM in place, is actually look at all of the demographics and psychographics of all of those people and understand what is the same. Those similarities are what you're touching on and the reason you're attracting those people. Concentrate on those, focus on those, and expand on that avatar. From there, you can either create an avatar or, better yet, write to one specific person on your list. Now, if you don't know everything about that person, chances are if they're your best customer, they'd love to hear from you. And this is where your opportunity is. Don't send out an email, don't send out a survey. Get on the phone and call them. Find out why they're doing business with you, what their needs are, what their fears are. Once you understand these things, you'll understand why they buy from you, and you can go find more of those people. If the top 20% of your list is responsible for 80% of your sales, think how fast you can grow your company by just focusing on that top 20%. Everybody else is great, but you don't need more of the 80% that are only producing 20% of your sales. You need more of the top people. So find one of those people and gear everything in your marketing towards that person. Now, conversely, if you don't have a list, if you're just starting out, what you need to do is create your client. And that's why I teach that as the very first part of the 4 Aces marketing system is creating your client. How to understand who they are, what they want, what their fears are. When I created this entire system, the 4 Aces marketing system, the Major Marketing Mistakes book, it was all geared toward a 46-year-old plumber who lives in North Mississauga named Gary. Gary has 2 kids, a wife. He's afraid that he can't afford to send his kids to school. He's seeing them grow up without him around because he's working so much. And he's wasted a ton of money on marketing in the past that didn't work. And that's why everything I wrote was about Gary, what Gary's needs are, what Gary's fears are, and how I can help him get to the next level. We have to do a complete demographic and psychographic markup of who this guy is. The first person I ever heard talk about this was Jasmine Starr, and she did a great job of explaining why you use a client avatar. But when you create your client, the next thing you need to do is create a story around them. The story helps bring them to life. This is very similar to method acting. When method actors get in their space, they're talking about motivations, fears, why their character does certain things. This needs to be exactly the same for your marketing system, and you'll yield a far better result. Here's the thing. Once you understand who your client is, you can gear your attractor to them. That's the thing that you put out there to get them onto your email list. You can gear your web page or landing page to them, all of your videos, all of your marketing past then, and most importantly, when you start using advertising to attract people to your list, you'll actually find, especially if you're using Facebook, which is one of my favorites, because that's where my client avatar spends more time on social media than anywhere else. I could say Instagram, but he's too old for the demographic on Instagram. I could say he's on LinkedIn, but he's too busy to spend time networking on LinkedIn. He's on Facebook because that's where his leisure time on social media gets spent. And understanding that allows me to spend money where it most matters. Instead of wasting money everywhere else, I can go specifically to Facebook, and I can target all of my marketing to Facebook, to him on Facebook. You'll notice on Facebook they have audiences that you have to create. And by understanding all those psychographics, demographics, needs, fears, wants, desires, all of those things ahead of time, all of your audience that you create on your social media marketing, and I don't mean, social media advertising, not social media marketing, all of those things are going to be geared very much to that specific person. And what you'll find when you actually start measuring your analytics, your metrics, what you'll find is that's exactly who you're attracting. Now, the interesting thing about that is you may find a secondary audience pops up. What do? Do not change what you're doing. I'll repeat that again. It's extremely important. Do not change what you're doing. If a secondary audience pops up, that's fantastic. Accommodate them in a separate way. They're watching because of what you're doing. As an example, when I started running ads for my private mortgage business, I found that I was attracting men exactly in the niche in that demographic that I was expecting. I was writing it for a 52-year-old man, or 54-year-old man, sorry, and I'm attracting between 46 and 55-year-old men on Facebook. What's really interesting is I picked up a second demographic of 55 to 60-year-old women. Now, if I changed what I was marketing to meet those women, I'd end up losing both audiences. Instead, what I can start doing is offering products specifically geared toward the second demographic. I can't change the marketing, but I can change the end product. Chances are they're not going to buy a product that's geared towards my 54-year-old man avatar, but they will buy a product that I gear towards them because I found a secondary audience. So back to the moral of the story, by understanding who you're marketing to long before you ever start marketing, it's the first step. It's the most important step. And it's one that I want to shortcut all the time, and I fight myself on, but every time I shortcut it, I regret it. But by understanding who that is, you're going to get a far faster result, a far less expensive result, and a far more loyal audience. When you already have an audience that wants what you have a much higher likelihood of getting them converted into an actual customer. This is somebody you don't know, somebody out in the ether, somewhere found your advertisement, became a subscriber, and then eventually became a customer for one simple reason, because you created everything around them. They'll feel special, they'll feel wanted, and they'll feel a kinship to you. You'll become an expert in their eyes because you knew who they were, what they wanted, and exactly how to solve their problem. I guess that's it really for targeted marketing. It is that simple. There's a lot more to it, and that's why I created the creating your client and creating their story part of the 4 Aces marketing system. But if you have any questions, you want to be a part of this show, please email me at jeff@guidetothegrind.com. You can either spell that or use the number. And if you like what I'm doing, just send me a note and say, hey, you know what, keep it up, because it's always nice to hear encouragement. There's far too much negativity out in the world. Don't forget to like and subscribe this video on YouTube. And thank you very much for watching me. Again, I'm Jeff, and this is Guide to the Grind Marketing.